courthouse the other day in the hallway. You're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
All right, I'm exhausted.
Yes.
I don't know about you,
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm exhausted.
Look, I came back, and by the way, I'm Linda Kenny Bodden, and that is Michael Bryan. We are together, Justice Serve TV. But I came back, as you know, from being out at a meeting and having lunch and discussing with the client. And you said to me, you texted me, "Is anything going on? What's happening? Is Lil Rod going to plead, or has he already pled guilty?" And I said, "I don't know." And we both got on the stream at the same time to get both pleas, to watch both pleas. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Who would have thunk when we moved our chat to from 1 p.m. till 6 p.m. today, last week, that this was going to happen? Michael Bryan, talk to us about it.
Luckily, yeah. See, I went out and see, I voted. So I was out voting, and then I went to the store, and I came back, and then all hell broke loose. And it was really just at the point where the feed came up, and Lil Rod was about to take his deal. So I've been scrambling ever since, pulled together some clips, fingers crossed. I will tell you, we've had a couple of folks mention, "Hey, can you boost the audio on those clips?" Normally, yes, because once I put them through the editing process, I can boost the audio. But today, didn't quite have that opportunity. So apologize for that. Stick your ear closer to your device.
We've been working to get this to you right up to about 30 seconds before we click the show is on the air. So if you like what you see, hit the subscribe, like, share button. As you all know, we had so many viewers when we had Doug on. And I have to tell you right off the bat, we didn't bother Doug to come on tonight because we know that he may be just a little busy because there was a recess in the stream. And then the recess was like, okay, we're gone for the day. So will there be pleas tomorrow?
No official adjournment. And for those who saw, he had a post on TikTok where he was talking about what happened after the stream ended yesterday because of the plea deal that took place with Quay number one, I will call him, and how emotional everybody in the courtroom was. And he said it even took him something like four tries at recording his comments before he could do it without breaking down. So having seen that, having seen what happened today, I said, I'm not going to wear out that welcome. Let's just give him a breath. So let's talk about what has happened, okay? We knew from Doug yesterday, as he said when I asked, would you be surprised if any other deals were forthcoming? And of course, first he said, with this case, I wouldn't be surprised at anything. And then he really kind of confessed that things were in the works, but he said, I would be surprised if there was a deal for his client.
Right.
So his client, of course, Gotti. So who knows? I mean, is that things are constantly evolving because why? A trial is a living, breathing thing, and that includes plea deals that could be in the offing. The ones that happened today, I think you were the first to tell me that Lil Rod, because he was kind of conspicuous in his absence yesterday, right? Remember, Doug made a point of asking the court, "Hey, can we recess for a minute? My client has a right to be in here for this plea deal, even though it wasn't his." And so they took a break, but the only one who did not show up was Lil Rod. So
that kind of told you as a trial attorney all you needed to know, that he was taking a deal, it was being worked out, and he wasn't going to go in and watch everybody else at this point.
So let's talk about his deal, which is, that one is Sesame Street compared to a doctoral degree for the Quay number two. I mean, look at, I got this is a mess. I'm trying to sort out which ones. Okay, which.
Okay, so wait. Let's go back a second for everybody. People that are here. Good afternoon to everybody. By the way, good evening to others who we got here because there was a mistrial with the judge asking, "Do you all want a mistrial for your client?" Because there were two Quays, right? There was Quay number one, who pleaded yesterday, and Quay number two, who pleaded today. And the reason why that happened is because we had a witness on the stand who had taken a deal, right, to testify. And it was asked to read a hashtag. And we've played this clip over and over. And the prosecution went, "And what does the hashtag say? And what does the hashtag say? And what does the hashtag say?" And he said that free Quay, because he was reading off an unredacted copy of what was on the screen that the jurors were seeing. Oh, no, all hell broke loose from that. So the two Quays who it most affected, right, are now gone from this case. So that's where we were to get today after yesterday.
Okay, so Lil Rod, who was not only the youngest defendant, but also the one with the least, he had one charge against him, the RICO charge. So there was no real mystery as to which one he'd be pleading to, because it was the only one against him. So let's talk about what he ended up doing. Remember, this guy was he was 19, or he's 20 now. He was 19 when this began. But more importantly, this guy is in prison right now on a life sentence, with the possibility of parole, but life for the murder of a 15-year-old. He was 15 at the time the murder took place. He and a 17-year-old, as part of an alleged gang activity, of course. And they shot this 15-year-old in the head, killed him in the car. And so what this does for Lil Rod is clean things up, so that as he goes forward, and he's obviously appealing his conviction in the murder of the 15-year-old, but as this moves forward, whether it's through appeal or parole or some sort of anything that gets him out of prison, he doesn't want this thing dangling over his head. He doesn't want an additional charge that may be tacked on as a consecutive, not concurrent. So for him, the motivation was, get this off my sheet, get this off my plate, so that I can focus on why I'm in prison now and the reasons I think I should not be, or work hard to get out at some point. Like I said, he's 20, convicted 15 as an adult.
Right. For life in prison for a murder, which his attorney said they had today. They think they have good grounds for an appeal. So what this was, Michael, was and I've tweeted all this under my @Kenny Bodden account, because I know you were very busy at the Justice Served TV account. He pleads guilty to time served in prison while waiting for this charge, right? Time served on the one count, the RICO conspiracy. He denied through his attorney that YSL was a street gang. He said that he really was trying to protect himself, and when he was younger in the hood, that he was 15 years at the time of the Jamari Holmes murder. I spelled it wrong. I'm sorry about that. It was Holmes. He's a product of how he grew up, that he has some additional cases in the prison system as a result of things charged while he's in the jail, that he was 11 years old at the time of some of these incidents that are being testified to, and that he did lean over and tell his attorney that he wanted her to thank the court on his behalf. Whether that's real or not, I don't know, but that's what supposedly happened. But he pled to time served, concurrent. That's like a gift. That's like you're going to the movies and give me a pack of gummy bears to eat while I'm watching movies.
And you get a large popcorn along with it. So this just cleans the slate for him, basically, so he can again focus on the murder conviction. Let's pull a clip here, and again, if the audio is a touch on the low side, it's Linda's fault. So that's all I can say. We got a couple from him. Let's start with this one, and it's about 3 minutes or so. Here we go.
I have had the honor, really, of representing Mr. Ryan along with Misty Williams, who I'm quite disappointed she could not be here today for an important day. This trial has been exhausting for everybody, and that certainly includes Mr. Ryan, who has been going through the court system since he was 15 years old. We categorically and adamantly deny that YSL is the criminal, dangerous street gang which it's been made out to be through this trial. We're actually quite happy with the record which was established during the presentation of the state's evidence of the alleged murder of Mr. Jamari Holmes. This plea today, Mr. Ryan is making a decision which is going to be the best for his future, what future he has, because he's already serving a life sentence. Were he to be convicted and sentenced to additional time, he would remain in custody. As I stated, we think the record established will strongly support his appeal, and hopefully, when his conviction is overturned, we don't want him sitting in prison for something else. Certainly not for actions he took when he was younger, and actions he took which are largely a product of how he grew up. As I stated, Your Honor, Mr. Ryan was 15 years old at the time of the Jamari Holmes murder. You've seen through the text messages, he was out at all different hours, doing all different things, which I don't think anyone would want their 15-year-old to be out doing. And so that is where he was, and so he did adopt the people who were around him, the people who could support him, the people in his neighborhood who grouped themselves, calling themselves YSL. Mr. Ryan at no point was trying to advance a criminal street gang and their interests. He was trying to protect himself, being a young person, largely on his own, and this is where he's ended up. I would like to say that there's been some sort of rehabilitative function here since he was sentenced to prison. It doesn't appear that that has happened. As you've heard, some of his additional cases are within the prison system. It would be wonderful if some of the money spent on a case like this could possibly be invested in the future of people like Mr. Ryan, who go into custody at such a young age, and who really then are not given the resources to make the changes that they really would like to make to have a productive future. With all of that said, I think Mr. Ryan has grown up a lot during this trial. He doesn't want to sit through this anymore. He doesn't want to ever be back in a courtroom ever again, Your Honor. He's heard about all sorts of incidents, which the 2015 crimes, he was 11 years old. Mr. Ryan's most sincere wish is to move on with his life, to put this behind him. And we thank the court for the opportunity to resolve the case in this way and not drag it out any further than it has been. All right. He just would like to thank the court, Judge.
So you may have noticed that I skipped the prosecution, railing on and on as they did before, for good reason. I think we had enough of that, and she's such a droner. It was again Miss Hilton, and I'm sorry, it was just too much. And this is more emotional. This is more real. This is the real world here. And this kid, I mean, look at him standing there. He's a kid. He looks like a kid. Let's compare the common themes from yesterday, ignoring the. I didn't show you the prosecution. Let's just say there was a lot of extraneous BS that was included in their recitation of the facts leading to this deal. And we heard from the attorney, Ms. DeBasi, the same kind of rejection of some of those alleged facts that were really just thrown out gratuitously, either for public consumption or to make the DA's office feel better about themselves, or maybe Ms. Love feel better about herself. The other constant is RICO. So now we have 2 convictions under the RICO statutes, which if you are the DA, you can, I guess, pound your chest about that.
Right. You get to pound your chest. And where are we in terms of the election? Just like 5 days ahead of it, and say, look, but the point that she made about, hey, maybe instead of doing these stupid prosecutions, because this one I think was a failure on all parts. Remember, there's victims here who have been sold goods that they're going to get a conviction. The prosecution is going to get RICO convictions for who committed the murder on victims, right? And I'd love to hear from some of those family members where they think that they have been used, abused, misused, and used for an improper purpose here to get some type of publicity for the DA as opposed to getting a conviction for crimes. Now, because,
and lied to all along the way. Yep.
Right. And lied to all along the way. And I think it's just outrageous because this is the criminal justice system. You have to take a deal sometimes, even if you're not guilty. Clients, we know, do that because they can't risk what's going to happen to them and getting a guilty conviction. And here, 2 years of trial, and this kid pleads guilty to time served to run consecutive. Time served to run consecutive. And as one of our viewers points out, and I think it was a great, I don't know who it was, we'll go back and find it, that they were too dangerous to have bail or bond granted, as they call it in Georgia. Too dangerous. And yet, well, we're just going to give them time served and let them plead to whatever here. But they were too dangerous to be out. So somebody says that the Mel Drinks family, no, they were lied to, and justice will not be served. So we're going to try to find those family members in the next couple of weeks after the election to see whether they feel they were used as tools for an election. Yeah. It would not be surprising to hear that they want to say a little something about what they've been put through. Okay, so let's see. I got another follow-up. And again, this relates to Lil Rod. This, I believe, is I think this might be the judge.
Let's see. Let's find out.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Ryan, I just want to make sure that you understand that this is ultimately, the decision is yours to make, not your attorneys. And I appreciate that both Ms. Abbasi and Misty Williams have been available and giving you legal advice and guidance, but it's ultimately your decision. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you, in fact, want to plead guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you've had enough time to think about it and to discuss it with your attorneys?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And Ms. Abbasi, have you and or Mr. Williams talked to Mr. Ryan about the benefits and drawbacks of all of his different options?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. All right. I find that there is a factual basis for the guilty plea to count one, the conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. Whatever the difference of opinion may be with regard to what YSL is or isn't, and what Mr. Ryan may or may not have intended, there is a factual basis that exists from the record, as it already is in this case, to support the necessary elements of the conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. And I have heard many of the alleged overt acts and the conspiracy evidence to advance the enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity and to control personal property and money. And I find that the factual basis for that exists. And I am going to accept Mr. Ryan's guilty plea. I find it to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences of this plea. And I'm going to sentence in accord with the recommendation that both of the state and the defense have worked hard to negotiate here, which is a sentence of 10 years commuted to time served and to be run concurrently with the sentence that Mr. Ryan is currently serving. And certainly within the court's consideration is the knowledge that Mr. Ryan is at this time serving a life sentence for the murder of Mr. Holmes. And while I understand that that is on appeal right now, those are the facts as they exist right now. So that is the sentence of this court. Mr. Ryan, at 20 years old, you have most of your life ahead of you, and I don't know what it is going to hold with regard to your appeal or anything after that. But whether it is more years in custody or whether at some point in time you see the light of day to the outside world again, which is very likely considering your age, as long as you behave yourself while you're incarcerated and do not continue to either commit crimes in prison or violate any of the prison rules. If you can be on the straight and narrow, then somebody your age, after serving some amount of time, is probably going to be considered favorably for parole. And you just have to keep that in mind, that you need to be looking out for sort of the long run and not playing the short game, but playing the long game so that you have a future in front of you still. So that is your sentence, and I wish you luck, and I wish that with further maturity, much like Ms. Abbasi has said that you have already exhibited throughout the course of this trial, that you are able to make better decisions and steer your life in a better direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Matthews, are y'all ready? All right.
So it would tee up the next one to come. I kind of wonder, as I see Ms. Love sitting there, I wonder, what's going through her mind. She was far less animated today than she was yesterday when she was visibly annoyed. It seemed to me when the attorney for Nichols was soundly blowing away their allegations that had nothing to do with the plea deal. Today, a little less animated, so it's nice. So what do you think about the judge's presentation, I'll call it, And while I'm mentioning presentation, the audio sounded pretty good to me, but folks tell me if you're getting it in a much reduced volume, because it sounded pretty strong to me. What did you think about the way the judge handled this, focused on his rehabilitation? What are your thoughts?
That's what it should have been happening to begin with, as opposed to using these as a tool to get to, as we all know, the big guy. All this was about getting to Jeffrey Williams, Young Thug. That's all this case is really about, in my opinion, having tried a lot of cases, right? Because why are you giving people time served? Why are you not, they were so dangerous. Why are you not letting them out in bail, but you make them sit there for 2 years for a trial that you know that they could get time served on just before an election? And I'm just a little bit suspect here. Okay. Now, I will tell you, somebody did ask, and we put it up there, Madeira Beach caregiver, what they need to do upon release is be able to move out of Fulton County. Now, you can move on probation. You have to get the new place you're going to go to agree, the old place to agree. But I agree with you, because some of these probations at 14 years and 9 years and all, you know, and I know what could easily
it's too easy to fall back into that life.
Very easy. But I'm just, having been a criminal defense attorney and a prosecutor, remember, I was a prosecutor, so I know the games. All right. I'm just a little bit suspect here, Michael.
So what do you think? I mean, I know you're focusing on the fact they gave him time served, and I get that, but he's already incarcerated on something else. That plays a big part in any negotiation. It's not like they said, okay, time served, you know, see you out there in the cold, cruel world. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it also should play a big part in charging. If he's already charged with a murder, why are you going to bring him in and charge him to sit here with this? I mean, of course he's not going anywhere unless you want to use him for some other purpose.
Oh, of course,
what could that purpose possibly be?
Of course. And I get that. But I'm just talking specifically about the no bond issue, because he was never going to go anywhere anyway.
Right. Well, he wasn't either, but some of the others were. Right. He wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So so that was the easy one. That one was pretty clean. And then I started making notes when Marquavius Huey came up there. I'm like, oh my God. First I saw, you know, I had my list of all of the charges. There were 19 charges initially. And I started, you know, trying to make notes, which one was which one was no pros, and which ones were they basically absorbing any sentence, right?
Can I tell you a funny thing? I
Please
started,
do.
you know, because you were cutting this to get ready for this show, right? And I knew you were. So I was trying to make notes on Twitter, putting all the charges. And I had a tweet ready to go that was like, you know, it was like the War and Peace novel. I don't know. And I wasn't sure what it all meant. So I cut it and just said 25 years, multiple counts, 9 in custody, 9 on probation, 5 suspending, doesn't add up to 25, because I couldn't keep track. So if you could keep track.
So let's just look at some of the big numbers. Okay, there were 19, and of those 9 were dismissed effectively. What do they use the word? They call it no pros, no pros.
No pros, right?
Yeah, not going to prosecute it. It's dismissed. So that left 10. A few of them were grouped together in a way. If they were aggravated assaults. There were some possession issues, you know, felon in possession. They got rid of one of them in jail. He had 2 charges from being in jail, and they're both possession charges. I think one was a phone and one was some other contraband. So they sentenced on one and dismissed the other. Let's see any other big notes here. Obviously, the total number of years is a walk in the park, you know, comparatively. This is where, you know, you had looking at 3 life sentences plus 100 years.
Plus 100.
That was the max. So after you're done living for 3 lives, then 100 years.
And Princess Mikey said we had a RICO of his own with laughing emojis. He had a RICO.
Yeah, exactly. He and his twin and triplet brother. So it boils down to, I see 9 plus 5. That's what I see in terms of service. But it's the 5, I think, is absorbed in the 9. So you have 9, and then you have 2 different levels of probation that I believe add up to 14. Can you check me on that?
Well, that's what she said. And she said, but it was going to be reduced down to 9 on probation from the 14.
Oh, it is. That was reduced as well?
Right.
Okay.
I missed that part. So she was going to 9. It was going to be total was 25 years, 9 in custody, 9 on probation, and 5 suspended, but we're missing a year.
Yeah.
And the judge was funny. The judge at the end did say, "Well, I'm not going to go through it all because
We have
it's
it in
all here
writing." He said, "We have it in writing." Well, I have it in writing too, but I ain't trusting it. So yeah, hopefully the indictment that they worked on, and they were just fine tuning it right up to the very end. In fact, it was the father-son attorney team, the Matthews attorney team. I think it was the father, Keratin. He hadn't even quite seen the redacted latest version to sign that till they were at the lectern, or were they at the podium?
They were at the lectern.
They're at the lectern.
They keep calling it a podium. It's wrong. When I write my War and Peace novel, which Here Comes Drama says I was writing as I was doing my tweet, yes, I will tell you that there is a Twitter called I am a lectern. It's not a podium, because podium is what you stand on.
Yes. Everybody has their little pet peeves, right?
It's spatter, not splatter, guys.
Right. And it's also, mine is over versus more than. Over is a reference to height. Okay. So if somebody gets sentenced to between 10 and 15 years, it's more than 10 years. It's not over 10 years. So more than and over, very distinctly different. Hey, it's the same number of syllables. What are you losing? More than, over, same syllables. Just try to get it right. That's one of mine. I got a lot of them. Okay, so let's jump into this one and see what we've got here. It's
represented by a father-son team who look fabulous, who presented themselves fabulous after 2 years in court, and who look alike. They could.
They got the same facial hair and everything. Yeah. One's a little grayer than the other. That happens, I hear. So let me see if I can find this. We do have also this defendant actually decided to speak, which I think was great. Okay, let's try this.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon to this honorable court, Your Honor. I'd like to begin by expressing to the court that we emphatically and categorically deny all of the recitation that's been presented by the court with respect to some of these allegations that's been laid out by the state. However, we do recognize that there are enough factual allegations in the recitation to support each and every count to which Mr. Huey is pleading this afternoon. So we do stipulate that there is enough to move forward with this plea. For those reasons, Your Honor, we are standing before this court to talk to this court about the acceptance of responsibility with respect to Mr. Marquavius Huey. Your Honor, Mr. Marquavius Huey was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, before we get into all that, I want to ask you about this, Linda. You notice that the rebuke there was the same, and that is, we're not saying we did A, B, C, D, and E, but we did F and G, which was just enough to qualify for the count to which he is pleading. So again, we see the prosecution trying to jam all kinds of stuff into the record. That's totally irrelevant. I do like this. Now we learn a little bit about this guy's background. And we've heard about each of these defendants. Let's just say nobody had it easy growing up, right? Let's listen to how this particular defendant, began.
He lived in the Jonesboro South community, a neighborhood project in the Atlanta community. He grew up there. He's seen a lot of things in his short 28-year life. His father was murdered in 2010, and he's been without a father for a number of years. He's been raised by his mother as a single parent. He has a number of siblings. There have been times when Mr. Huey and his mother and his family have been homeless and have lived out of a car. So he's had a very, 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 very hard life as it relates to his upbringing. Notwithstanding that, Your Honor, he did manage to graduate from high school. Mr. Huey, Your Honor, now has 2 children. He's 28 years old. He has 2 children. He has a 5-year-old son, Your Honor. He has a 2-year-old little daughter that was born in July of 2022. He has never met or seen his daughter in person. until today as she's here in this courtroom. He recognizes that choices puts him before this court in this case. Your Honor, we are asking this court to take into consideration that he has no prior felony convictions. I've had a very long time to get to know Mr. Huey because I've been with Mr. Huey on a regular, daily basis during the week since January of 2023. I've got a chance to know him. I've got a chance to work with him on his case regularly. And he wants to, when he gets out of custody, Your Honor, he wants to do a number of things, two in particular. He wants to start and become affiliated with a nonprofit organization where he can be able to talk to young children, teenagers, because he was a teenager when he lost his father, and things began to take a turn for Mr. Huey. He wants to be able to tell teenagers, young boys, young black boys, he wants to be able to say to them, don't do what I did, and you have another way in which you can go. And he wants to be able to share his experiences in that way. I have linked Mr. Huey up with an organization called the Young Generation Movement, and I've known that nonprofit organization and the founder of that organization for a long period of time. He's also present in this courtroom, and I've linked Mr. Huey up with them so that when Mr. Huey gets out of custody, he will be able to have an organization that can mentor him, that he can align himself with, where he can begin to engage himself with anti-violence nonprofit conduct and mentoring other young people. He also, in terms of being able to earn an income, because he is now, Your Honor, if this court accepts this plea, Mr. Huey will now, for the first time, be a convicted felon. He is not first offender eligible. He wants to get his commercial driver's license, Your Honor, and he wants to get a trucking company and be able to earn a living for himself because he recognizes that it's going to be a challenge for him to be able to go out and apply for jobs and be able to get income by getting an employer to hire him. So he's going to focus and target himself to be able to fend for himself so that he can take care of his young children that he has helped to bring into this world. Your Honor, we are here before this court because it's an acceptance of responsibility. We recognize that this has been a very long, enduring trial, and we have come to a point where we have painstakingly negotiated with the state of Georgia, and we've come up with a negotiated resolution that we believe is one that is fair. We believe that is sufficient to recognize the seriousness of the charges that are before the court, and we believe it's one that will cause Mr. Huey to be able to see the light of day in a reasonable period of time. Mr. Huey has been in custody. I'd like to enter into the record, Your Honor, as Defendants Exhibit 1 for sentencing purposes, a proof of incarceration from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. Mr. Huey, through the computations of the various times when he was arrested on these charges and released, and from the time that he's currently been in custody to the present, he has approximately 4 years under his belt against that 9-year sentence, and that 9-year sentence is parolable. So we're going to enter that as an exhibit before the court.
All right, that'll be Defendants Exhibit 1 to this plea hearing, and as you know, and as I'm sure you have shared with Mr. Huey, it's ultimately the Department of Corrections that calculates the time served portion of the sentence, so it'll ultimately be up to them, but I will include that as a part of my sentencing sheet as well. that he
Thank
be
you,
given
Your Honor.
credit for time
Thank
served.
you. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to represent Mr. Marquavius Huey along with my son, Attorney Carlton Matthews Jr., who also would like to address the court at this time, Your Honor. So we're asking this court to accept the negotiation that has been represented to the court and Mr. C.J. Matthews.
Yes, good afternoon to this honorable
Good
court.
afternoon, Mr. Matthews.
I've been gracious with this opportunity to represent and serve Mr. Huey. Mr. Huey's an honorable young man. Mr. Huey does not allow his mistakes to define him, but he is remorseful, Your Honor. He has learned, grown, and became a better man during this trial. Mr. Huey will have a release date, Your Honor. And I'm confident in him that he'll be a working class citizen in society when he is released.
Okay, so let's do a little revision math here based on what we've heard from the attorneys for Mr. Huey. And so if I've got it right, and he truly has roughly 4 years time served, and let's just talk about it in ballpark numbers. A 9-year sentence might be 6-ish, right? Give or
Right.
take.
Right.
And if you serve 4, I mean, this guy could be looking at parole, and as some people have said, before this trial ends.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so it's possible. So I mean, again, on its face, a pretty sweet deal. What do you think about this guy? And we're going to hear in his words a couple of seconds here. What do you think
Well,
about?
I was
about
shocked, quite frankly, because as someone pointed out, he had so much in the indictment against him that he didn't have any priors. That was the first thing. The second thing was I was happy the judge agreed to recommend the transition program for him so he could get his commercial driver's license. And going forward here, it underscored what she said is that it's very, and what he said, it's very hard. It's going to be very hard to get a job, is what she said, right?
Right.
When you are
When you're
coming
filling out
prison.
that form, are
That's
you
right, right.
convicted felon? Yes.
So you
We'll
have
see
to
you
kind
later.
of work for yourself for a company. You know, you may incorporate, you work for a company, and then the company gets hired. Or you're a driver, which no one cares about because you're on the road by yourself. You're not going to be with people, right? And I thought that was another thing, that we spent all this money on this trial to go after, the guy at the top, or we think the guy at the top, and we forget about all these people that we spent this money on. Maybe it would help. And then the third thing, Michael, that just got me is I see the father-son duo of the lawyer standing there, so eloquent, so elegant, so prepared, so gracious, so concerned about their client. And then I look at Quay, whose father was murdered, and he was living in a car with his mother, homeless. And I say, but for the grace of God.
You think this kid had no chance? I mean,
No chance.
that's what you think. Good question from unidentified co-conspirator. With those defendants no longer part of the case going forward, are their crimes still part of the case, or do they go away with the defendants? Obviously, if you're charged with a crime in connection with somebody who's gone, unless the charge is just conspiracy, you can still be subjected to the charges. So we'd have to drill down in the indictment to see where there's a still connective tissue between some of the crimes alleged and the people that have been pled out. I know there's still going to be plenty of crossover. I don't think this is going to be a get out of jail free card for those that remain. And remember, there's only 3 left.
Right, only 3 left. And you know what?
Left.
If they take deals, they'll be out before Monk Tunt gets out on his probation revocation.
Yeah, he's probably thinking that whole thing over. So, and on that point, in terms of others, because there were 29 original defendants, remember, there's still some that are waiting trial.
Right. So what happens with them?
Yeah, I mean, I would think if I'm representing one of them, I might be knocking on somebody's door to talk about some plea deals again.
I want an election deal. I want a pre-election deal. I want to
put this on the win side of the ledger for you, Ms. Love and Miss Fani. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know either. But what happened next?
I'm just reading. Don't mind me. I'm just reading right here.
Reading. Oh, you asked, let's see. I always thought he looked innocent, had any more charges than any of them, right? That's true versus Waco. I was like, he looked so innocent, and he didn't have any priors. Like Jeffrey Williams had no priors. And
I mean, they threw the literal book at this guy. I mean, really, 19 charges.
Right.
It's
And
unbelievable.
little mama makes it 1234 makes the point. The prosecution is terrible. And these defendants may have been found not guilty, but the trial may keep them. Here's the deal. The trial may keep them in trial longer than they're going to serve if they plead. And that's the justice system is like, it's like people plead guilty to get out of getting a bigger sentence. It really is. It's horrible. Let's face it. It may be the best we have, but it's not good.
It is, and it plays so much on human emotion and motivation. You got those years hanging over your head. Maybe you'll say something that helps you. Who would do that? Lil Woody? I mean, the guy he made his own little career out of basically, I'll tell you whatever you need to hear just to get me the hell out of here.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's a horrible circumstance, and to see some of these guys get, I guess some measure of justice. It's like kissing your sister. It's like a tie. It's like nobody's totally happy with what has happened, but maybe it's the best resolution under the circumstances.
I'm not sure I put it that way, Michael.
You don't like the kissing your sister
No,
analogy?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. Get rid of that one.
Get rid of that. Well, I'm old. That would have been, back in the day, that was like, okay. I have 4 sisters. Maybe that's why I remember that one. Okay, now this is just Mr. Huey. Let me see if I can find him for you.
Okay.
He's here somewhere. And I was glad that he spoke up. And it was funny because the judge mentioned, oh, yeah, I guess I should have asked you, because she's gotten so used to people, defendants in his position not talking. But here he is talking.
Something else that you want to do while you're in there, be making good use of your time while you're in there and furthering yourself. And you have had a fine example next to you for the past 2 years of what somebody can do with their lives. So don't forget about that, and be the father that you need to be and that you ought to be to your very young children. They're still going to be very young when you get out. And please make sure that you abide by all your probationary conditions, because if you don't, then you're going to be back to see me. And because I recognize how much of a break you're getting right now, I'm probably not going to be as lenient if you come back before me again, because you are getting a huge opportunity to turn your life around, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that's the sentence of the court, and I want to wish you good luck and good fortune. You can get through the next few years, and then you can have the rest of your life to do good work with.
Can you address the court?
Yes. I should have asked that. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Judge. Thank you.
I want to thank the court and thank God. And I want to apologize to my kids, my family, and everybody who done supported me in this stressful process. I plan to do my time, come back, be a better man.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Your Honor. Thank you.
All right.
So that was pretty strong. That was pretty heartfelt. Who doesn't want to, in any walk of life, want to be a better man, a better person? And I can't imagine these guys when they go back to prison. There are a lot of things that happen there for which they have very little control. Things they get sucked into, things that could jeopardize their getting out or their parole. It's like a landmine. It's like a minefield every day to keep your nose clean. And
Right.
And hopefully a little tough love there from the judge, saying if you do have an issue, this is such a sweetheart deal, you come back to me, it ain't going to be so nice the next time. Probably have to drop the hammer on you. So again, I think that's great, but there's so many things that
Could happen.
can happen that are kind of outside of their best intentions. So.
But Michael, what didn't you hear from any of the defendants that have pleaded so far? You didn't hear what? I'll ask our viewers, what didn't you hear, which makes this seem really suspect? That
I did it?
Well, you didn't hear I did it. You didn't hear, and as part of your plea deal, you've agreed
the
to testify
testifying.
truthfully
testify.
against, if you're called by the state in this trial against any of the defendants on trial, meaning AKA Young Thug, AKA Jeffrey Williams, AKA YSL. You didn't hear that. The state didn't get that. And they never were going to get that. I think they understood that after Little Woody, okay, even though and all. But they didn't get that. And that's a big deal. Now you won't see Fonnie Willis talking about that when she crows about getting a conviction here, and there'll be that crowing.
Oh, no doubt about it. It may be right up until Monday night. On the eve of the election.
It may be after.
But if you think about the witnesses that they did have deals with, that did testify, I think they did more harm than good to the prosecution. So
I agree.
I'm not sure it's much of a loss to have these guys who've made deals not testify, because the last thing you want is another 3 guys coming up there to say, well, that never happened. No, that's what they wanted me to say, so I told them.
Well, and I will. There's no way they were going to plead guilty and snitch out Jeffrey Williams as part of a deal so they could get out when they had to go back to Rice Street. It ain't happening. Okay, it simply wasn't happening. Big mistake by everyone not giving some of the ones who had no record bail, especially if their evidence was a little bit iffy. But here, Mimi, these pleas scare me because Judge Whitaker keeps saying the evidence presented so far supports the RICO charges. This will mean she feels the same about the other 3. Yeah, well, remember, she was a former prosecutor. She probably feels that, and I think that at the end of the state's case, she would have denied any motion to dismiss, no matter what, saying that there's predicate acts here that could support at least 2, a conspiracy to commit RICO.
Yep, and it's got to go to the jury. So the only time that her opinion on whether the RICO charges are supported or not would be in the context of another plea deal.
Right.
So
right. So
and if that happens, great. We'll see what happens. What time is it? Let's see. I don't know. We got another plea deal. Anything else?
No.
On the
and she has to. Teresa Trice points out she kind of has to accept these deals. The defense attorneys would be crazed if she didn't accept it, and we've seen that.
Of course, we have seen it. We've seen it in very high-profile cases. It is rare. It isn't the norm. It isn't what's expected. But the fact is, she's got to put her seal of approval on it, and it's never really certain until she says, "I accept the plea, and here's your sentence."
Yeah, but the attorneys knew before him. So the real question now comes: we have several high-profile defendants left. Let's talk about 2 of them. With Doug Weinstein's client, Yak Gotti, and we love Doug here on the show. We try to give him a platform whenever we can. Tonight was not the night to give Doug a platform. Okay,
yeah, I think
he's probably a little busy.
I hope, I hope he's relaxing a little
and
bit.
Of course Jeffrey Williams. Okay. Who I think if this goes to a jury, it's like a how long can we say stay in here to say not guilty? Do we get lunch first?
How long do we have to go through this stuff and make it look like we did some due diligence?
Yeah.
Don't forget Shannon Stillwell. He's these are clearly the 3 high profile defendants. Their names have come up more often than others. I think there are folks, as to the defendants that have now pled out, the names were not all that familiar because they weren't constantly being talked about. It wasn't until the Quay factor, I'll call it, and the Quay factor, raised its ugly head through 2 different witnesses. Then people started to cue in on the Quays, and then Lil Rod was just kind of really an afterthought almost in the background of this story.
Right, but does she give him does she still offer that mistrial? I don't even think anyone's talking about that right now.
Yeah, but she's got to make a ruling. She's got to do something.
Well, not if they plead, right? Not if
well, we weren't sure because remember what Doug told us about the Harvey rule, and he's referencing attorney Bruce Harvey. They decided early on under Glanville's reign that any motion made, any objection made was deemed to be made by everybody unless somebody specifically opted out. Well, there wasn't anybody that opted out of the mistrial motion that was made on behalf of Mr. Nichols. So technically, I think it's still out there, and that's what. And Doug thinks it's still out there.
Right, but he said he wanted a mistrial with prejudice.
Of course, but it's still hanging out there to be ruled on.
Rumor mill has it that there are some more pleas being worked on, which is why we saw recess, right, and then nothing.
Yeah, there was no formal adjournment. It was a recess,
right? And so I guess you could have more pleas, you could have a mistrial motion, or you could have the case going forward. And if there's a mistrial motion, do they bring it back again, or is there a plea? I mean, I was discussing with you that in the federal court, there's something called misprision of felony. Okay. And that's when you have a client who doesn't really want to plead guilty. Misprision of felony means you're pleading guilty, but it's to that you didn't report a felony. So it's really, it's always pretty much
like
probation.
a crime of omission.
Right.
What is spell that term for us?
Okay. Misprision is MISPRISION. Okay. Misprison. Okay. So that you don't report a felony. You don't report a felony. Now, I did hear something today in one of the plea deals that was pled that there was a text where I think it was in Quay's plea where Quay had texted Jeffrey Williams and told him he has all this stuff from robberies, and supposedly Jeffrey Williams says it back, go give that stuff back or go put that stuff back. So that's what I said. I don't know if Georgia has a misprision of felony, but if there is some kind of deal being discussed, and we're just speculating here, big speculation.
That'd be like a proverbial slap on the wrist. I mean,
right. It'd be a slap on the wrist. You plead to that and say with no time at all. You just plead to it, no time, and you go on your way because you didn't report that Quay, who pled guilty today, he knew that he had taken stuff through a robbery, and you just told him to put it back as opposed to reporting him for a robbery. I mean, that's a way out.
Yeah. I think all of those things are probably in play. Hey, do we want to do any questions? Which was part of our original intent.
Yes, questions.
Part of our original intent.
Go ahead.
Now you're asking me to find that stuff.
No, I know. We have two great moderators tonight. Here comes drama with Missy Mayhem.
I mean, we're trying to answer stuff as it comes along. So if you have something handy while I'm searching, go ahead and knock yourself out.
Okay. Was the jury present during these plea proceedings? Tammy Lynn? No. And supposedly they're not supposed to be watching it. But we all as lawyers know, okay, you're in the kitchen, getting yourself something out of the refrigerator, which we all do. And, your family's in the other room talking. You're not watching, but you're kind of overhearing. And the family's talking really loud. I'm screaming right there, right? So we all believe as lawyers that the jurors know what's going on.
Okay, let me. This one's kind of. If I can find it here, this one's kind of germane to what we've been talking about. It's has.
Oh, by the way, it's a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. It's not in federal court. It would even be no time.
You're talking about the misprison. Yeah. It's such an interesting word. What's the origin of that word?
Oh, now, don't put me there. Don't put me there. I know lectern and podium. Podium is stands, but I don't know with the extra O in this prison. It's not prison. It's prision. I don't know. So look it up, guys. Let us know next time we're on the air.
Okay, I'm not sure this is going to work, so maybe I'll just have to. This is a question from Zwam. I'm going to say 08. Can the state read this into the record? And I think the reference is to the plea deals. Can the state read this into the record in the trial against the rest of the defendants now that it's been signed? I'd like to let the jury know why he has gone from trial. We talked about this briefly yesterday. What does the court say? Because an attorney drops dead, and you got to explain it. Somebody disappears, and in my experience, it's as clean and as vague as possible. Now they have 3 of them to explain. You'll notice that so and so is not in the court. The matters against them have been resolved. Carry on.
Okay, that's right. Right.
It would be way too prejudicial.
They may not even say the matters have been resolved. They may say, don't speculate as to why
they're no longer involved in the case. So, and to do more than that gets dicey because then it starts, oh, whoa, wait a minute. 3 people pled guilty to stuff. Well, then that means these guys that are left here are guilty. So that's not the way to do it.
My 4 girls, how do y'all believe will Love and Hilton's reputation look like to their community? Well, I think, talking, and we've had, I think Ashley Merchant, when she was on, mentioned this early on, and one of the early times Ashley Merchant was on, she said that Miss Love did this kind of stuff in all of these cases for a long time. But when you're in a 3-day trial or a 4-day trial or a 5-day trial that's not televised, no one really paid attention. This time people paid attention. And I think that her diminution of duties, shall we say, over the last month, so it shows that there's something not quite right in terms of how she is being perceived. Hilton, I think people think that maybe she was left to pick up the slack and just made mistakes.
Yeah, it is funny how in all of these plea deals, Hilton has taken the lead, and Ms. Love is sitting there squirming in her chair to varying degrees, depending on what's being said. And I think that's purposeful because why? We mentioned this, unlikable. She doesn't really need to be exposed any more than she has been. It's unfortunate, but I think you're right. When you're not in the spotlight, what are you getting away with? See, I think I got another one.
We
here
have two
for you.
questions here, both the same question. Yeah. Do you
Go
think
ahead,
this
go ahead.
will drag out until after the election? No, I don't think it will. I think that the pressure
What
to
was
get
that
rid of this
question?
case now. I think that Fani Willis wants this. Do you think this is going to drag out to after the election? A number of people had it. Okay, so I think that the pressure to get this resolved now is big. Now, of course, if Michael Steele and Jeffrey Williams, and remember what Doug told us,
Brian
if there's
Steele.
a plea offer, the attorney has an ethical duty to take it to their client. Brian Steele. I keep saying Michael because I have politics on my mind. Brian Steele has a plea offer. He has to take it. He has to take it to his client. And you and I, all of us, all of our viewers right now, we're not the ones sitting in jail. Jeffrey Williams may feel, hey, I can get back on with my life. I wouldn't recommend a plea deal to him. By the same token, if I get a plea deal that's a misdemeanor with
that's what we talked
time
about.
served, maybe I would. Right.
Yeah, got to be time served. We know that. Misdemeanor would be the key. Maybe there's a super low level felony, but that's a whole different name tag that you're strapping on.
That's
if
a
you accept
that's a
that.
different thing because then you're
Especially if
stuck,
you,
and they're gonna go after him.
of course. So that's what I think is most likely. It's going to be, as we talked about the other day, some sort of misdemeanor, time served. Have a nice day. But I think that's sticking in Fani Willis's craw, and she has no motivation, win or lose the election. She has no motivation to end this without being able to claim victory. She doesn't. And so as we get closer to the election, if reality means anything to her, we think she's still going to have her job. There doesn't seem to be any chance that her opponent is going to overtake her. So where does that put her after the fact? She's stuck in this case, this never-ending case, where she's starting to look like really on the wrong side of bringing the case. I don't know what benefit there is to her to drag this out. I just don't. I do not.
Yeah.
How was
And
Paul
then someone
Howard
asked,
worse than
how
Fani?
was Paul Howard he was the prior DA worse than Fani? And I think it goes to the same question about what do Fani's peers think of her. And again, I'm only going to go by what Ms. Merchant mentioned to us, that when Ashley, I remember when Paul Howard was going to probably lose to Fani, and Paul Howard went after cops and all, but he had a little problem with apparently sexual harassment in the office, according to what was going around there, while he had to step down. And everyone, allegedly, all the defense attorneys were welcoming Fani Willis. They thought that she'd be great, that she'd be fair. And Ashley Merchants basically said, I think she said on one of our shows, she's been a nightmare. They never expected her to be the way she was, and have all these issues come about. And so I guess how you're going to have to answer that if you're a voter down there in Atlanta, not for us to answer, but
I can't wait to see how that
situation. I know you're a man on the street. You're a man
well,
on the
yeah,
street.
I was looking for a Fani Willis supporter. I couldn't find any Fani Willis supporters. They either despised her or didn't know who she was, which is interesting. And unfortunately, as I've said before, if you don't do a little study, and you may get in that booth. I was just in there today. See that? Voted. You may just say, "Oh yeah, Fani Willis. That name sounds familiar." Check. I mean, that's how people vote sometimes. You should get in the booth. What am I lecturing? You get in the booth, and if you read something, it's a measure you don't understand, it's a race you don't, just don't vote. Just skip that one. Go to the next one. This isn't a test. It's not a Scantron like at school where you have to fill in every blank. If you don't know enough about the person or the thing, then just move on. Yeah, come on.
So the question of the evening is, what happens if Doug pleads? What happens the rest of the case? I think the rest of the case, everyone goes away. I think that everyone gets deals. I don't see how they're going to try this case with all the people left that are severed out. I just don't see it.
Well, these three right now, I think this is like a three-legged stool right now. Okay, we've had all this other stuff. Any of these three legs go, this thing can't stand. That's my thinking.
Yep.
So the question:
How about you out there? How about our viewers? What do you all think? All right, we're going to wait for you.
I'll put it in one of our community polls.
Oh, good. That's a great idea. That's right. And we have a community poll on our YouTube page, right, Michael?
Right now, we've got basically the question that's been up and it's getting a lot of activity has been, what should happen in this case? The overwhelming majority, I think it's somewhere in the 60% range, is that everybody should get a deal and basically walk. That's what the overwhelming decision is. Mistrial with prejudice. That's what.
All right.
That's
I'm
what
gonna
most people want.
I'm gonna let this be the last question of the night.
Beach
I'm making
caregiver.
an executive decision.
Oh,
Actually,
no, I'm not. I'm not. But I have been, but I'm not.
He has a wife and he has a dog called
A dog. Yeah, I got 2 kids and a dog. But the dog is first on the list.
Domino.
Domino. Yeah,
Domino.
We've named the dog after a stripper, apparently. But
yeah. I only say that because Ashley Merchant had the same question to her when she was on the show.
I remember. Even worse, somebody was threatening to, kind of create maybe a reason to get divorced so that she would be available. Yeah. And for those who want to check out, I like to plug my wife's work. Lisa Bryant, she was the director on Filthy Rich, the Epstein story, and the follow-up, Ghislaine Maxwell, which I think is called, what's it called? The Monster Behind the Monster. Still on Netflix. They always, bubble up after any Epstein story comes about. She did an amazing job directing those. So check those out if you get a chance. If you're one of the few folks who hasn't seen them, because they were crazy popular. Okay, so I guess we've run out of time for questions, but we've got some that'll.
We have like hundreds of them. We'll try to have. We won't be back unless there's something like crazy, like thug.
Another plea.
Another plea, and we may have to just jump on. We will all see you all Monday night at 6. But if there's something crazy that Doug takes a plea, even though we're supposed to be like doing other things tomorrow, we will try.
What are we doing Friday? We're doing something Friday, right?
For Friday, it was like work. It was like, remember, I am a lawyer. You are a lawyer. It was like work.
I just thought we had something on the calendar. Well, we'll figure it out.
Maybe we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
Right. You, Michael Lawless says, "Yacht Gotti, please tomorrow." Well, we're gonna see, but we have to.
Oh, who said that? Michael.
One of our viewers.
Is that some inside information or what?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. And of course, if Doug is available, we will.
Yeah, I might knock on his door tomorrow because he's had a moment to breathe.
Eastern Daylight. Well, by Monday it's Eastern Standard. This week is still Eastern Daylight Time. It's usually 6 o'clock now, except for next Wednesday. Maybe we'll have to talk to you all about whether or not we should do a live show at all because it's the day after election, and just depending on what time this works out. George is on the same time zone. We're on Eastern Daylight Time.
Yeah.
So
Linda believes that next week, after the election, everybody will be consumed with what happened on that Wednesday. I have a theory that people will be so sick of it and it's done that they'll want to talk more about the stuff we generally talk about. I don't know. We'll see. One of us is going to have to be right. But in the meantime, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And I'm Linda Kenny Bod, and we are Justice Sir. Please subscribe, like, share, and notify.